the blacksmith, and the weeping hammer. The smith Jarek was not content with honest sweat and simple steel. He was obsessed with fame, convinced that only a weapon of terrifying power could etch his name into history. "A common hammer creates common fortunes," he muttered, staring at the glowing embers of his forge. "I must have a tool touched by shadow." Jarek sought out the whispered legends of the heartwood Hamura tool, said to be pulled from the roots of the world, capable of forging darkness itself. He ignored the warnings that the hammer demanded more than effort. It demanded life. Following old, forbidden maps, he descended into the deepest, silent veins of the granite mine. The hammer was heavier than iron, cold and strangely damp. Jarek pulled it free from the stone and returned to his shop. On his first strike upon the molten metal, the hammer did not ring its side, and from the grain of the dark wood, a thin, black residue wept onto the steel. Jarek felt a sudden, profound exhaustion, as if he had worked for a week without sleep. Jarek began his grand project, the Sword of Endless Night. Each swing brought the terrible beauty of the blade closer to realization, and each swing drained Jarek further. He dismissed the weakness, telling himself that true genius required great sacrifice. The black tears of the hammer became thicker, sticking to the anvil like tar. Weeks blurred into a desolate month. The forge became a place of cold shadows, even when the fire roared. Jarek's skin clung tight to his bones. His eyes were hollow and bruised. He subsisted only on the dream of the finished weapon, forcing himself to lift the heavy tool. One twilight, as Jarek prepared for another swing, he heard a sound beneath the heavy sigh of the wood. It was a faint, sorrowful whisper, too quiet to form words, but clear enough to convey endless grief. Jarek froze, convinced the lack of sleep had finally shattered his mind. He shook his head and kept working. The Sword of Endless Night was terrifyingly beautiful. The blade absorbed light, creating a hole of pure shadow in the center of the forge. Jarek's ambition was satisfied, but his body was failing. He knew he only had enough strength left for the final, critical blows. Jarek lifted the hammer for the last time. As he brought it down, intending to finalize the hilt, the weeping was no longer tears, it was a dreadful shriek. Streams of black essence erupted from the wood, and in the chaos, Jarek saw a familiar, anguished face momentarily flicker within the darkness. The sword was done. It rested on the anvil, silent and deadly. Jarek dropped the hammer, stumbling back, clutching his throat. The face he had seen, was it real? He slowly picked up the hammer, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. As Jarek held the hammer, demanding to know what spectral trickery this was, a voice, deep and sorrowful, resonated not in the air, but inside his own mind. "My son, Jarek," stop it was. The voice of his father, Bogdan, the master smith, who had vanished years ago. "I found this hammer years ago," Bogdan's spirit explained, the voice heavy with eternal regret. "I tried to forge a warning, but the hammer consumed me instead. Every strike you made was a blow against my spectral form, trying to stop you, trying to cry out the truth. Your ambition did not just cost your life, Jarek. It forced me to witness your doom." Jarek finally understood. He had sacrificed his soul, his life, and his father's final piece for a weapon he had never needed. He lifted the hammer one last time, not for glory, but for atonement. With a tremendous, selfless effort, Jarek shattered the Sword of Endless Night against the anvil. As the black blade crumbled to dust, the hardwood hammer fell silent, glowing warmly, freed of its terrible curse. Jarek's life was nearly gone, but his soul, finally free of ambition, was saved.